What's up, Hoof listeners? Welcome back to the Hoof Podcast. We are now through 6 weeks of the NFL, and what a wild, wild week this was. Anthony's currently going through puberty after going to the game, so when you hear him talk, warning, it
The
sounds like he's
voice is not fully recovered yet. Yes, it sounds like I'm being muffled a little bit. I did my part. I will just say that much because we have a lot to get into with this game, but I definitely have some beef with the crowd that was in attendance. So yeah, we'll have to get into it. Worst crowd for a Bills game that I've ever been to. So
they're probably
not a
bored.
good thing to say.
You know,
Sure.
when you get bored at a game like that when the offense does nothing on both sides, you drink more.
Yeah, you can drink all you want, but you got to get loud on third down. You got to be loud on defense, period. If your voice isn't as gone as mine, then you weren't doing your job. And, we could talk about it now, I guess. It was, like I said, the worst crowd that I've ever seen at a Bills game. Okay, these people, there were a lot of Giants fans, but that's fine. That happens. I figured there would be. The people up here who don't get to see their team in New Jersey came to this game and were excited about it, including my brother who came with me. It's just the Bills fans. And I was trying to put my finger on it. And I realized, even tailgating, I saw a few people and it was nice to say hi to a few people. But a few people who came up to me and said hello were ones who have never been Bills fans. And all of a sudden they're wearing Bills gear and going to a Sunday night football game where, they just aren't invested, right? They're fake Bills fans, if you will, surface level Bills fans, which is fine. I'm welcoming all, but you got to understand that when you go in that stadium as a Bills supporter, you have a job to do. You bought a ticket to come to the game. Doesn't mean you sit on your ass and you do nothing. Okay. And I hate that. I had this beef with Broncos fans back when Peyton was playing there, and I went to games and I was literally screaming at Broncos fans because they're all sitting down when they're by 3 points in a playoff game. And I'm like, you mother effers. Like, I would give a limb to be in this situation as a Bills fan because we were still in the drought days. And you guys are all sitting down, get your asses up. And I'm yelling at the Broncos fans. And luckily they did start to get up and they ended up winning the game, but they're all like pouting and quiet because they're losing. Same thing in this game. It felt like, I don't know, maybe it was just a posh Bills crowd, oh, we don't get loud. Yes. But like I said, I don't care who you are. I don't care what your background is, how rich you are, how poor you are. You go in that stadium for game day. You have a job to do. Get loud on defense. It's your job. Again, if you still have your voice, you are not doing your job. So get louder and give it your all. And I've never, I've been to a million Bills games where we suck, okay, and we weren't favored to win or whatever, or we were and we lost, whatever. The crowd was still in it. This was just deflating. And I've heard all the excuses. Yeah, oh, well, they didn't give us anything to cheer about. No, they didn't. They played like shit, okay? The game was crap. That doesn't matter. Just like the players have to get up and do their job, we as fans have to do our job. If you're at the stadium especially, bitch all you want at home on the couch. Stay quiet all you want at home on the couch. But if you show up for game day, you have a job to do. Get loud, shout. I want to break records. I mean, you have got to be just as loud as you were for the Dolphins game in this game against the Giants. And they just absolutely were not. I'm looking around. I'm pounding. I'm banging. I was in the second row, corner of the end zone. I'm making so much noise. The people around me, I'm hyping them up. But I'm looking at the sections next to us, and people are just standing there. And I'm like, people, get loud. Like, what? Is this your first time? It's like they didn't know what they were doing.
This reminds me of watching Bills games in New England during the drought days. And, the Patriots, like, it's a close game, but the Patriots fans are just mum about it, right? They have that confidence that the Patriots were going to figure out a way to win the game, right? There's no need to get all riled up. I don't know if you remember that. I remember noticing that, but that's certainly something that was talked about, when the Bills lost to the Patriots, 50 times in a row or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of that going on with Buffalo, right? There's the expectation that this offense is going to be great with Josh Allen and be great with Stephon Diggs and bounce back from the London game where they were a little sluggish. But I mean, when the team comes out and the drives are punt, fumble, punt, miss field goal, interception,
It was not pretty.
it gets a little disheartening.
But the defense played well, and they held on to the lead and did what they had to do. And again, no excuses. I don't care if we're down by 60. If you're in the stadium and you're on defense, you get loud. And I was loud every down, but third down especially, you have to know when they say third down and you hear that train whistle, you better get hyped. And I know we're going to recap everything about the game, but the momentum changer, you know what the momentum changer was in the stadium, at least, was the fight with the 16 flags and the hats and everything else. The Giants players, I didn't get to rewatch the game, so I'm only coming from the perspective of being at the game. The Giants players, I was in that end zone where the fight was, my seats were. So they were, going back and forth with the crowd and saying shit to the crowd and kind of going, oh yeah, what? Because they were up 6-0 or whatever it was, 9-0 at that point. And it was the worst thing they could have done. I looked at my Giants friends around me, and I'm like, look, that's the one thing they shouldn't have done. They should have just kept going, let the crowd be silent. Instead, you get this brouhaha. All of a sudden, the Giants players are pointing at the crowd and saying stuff and whatever. And there was 3 or 4 of them, and I'm like, no, that's not good. And then the crowd started to wake up a little bit, which was good because luckily we came back and got the W, which is ultimately what matters. But it was not that pretty, to say the least. And coming down to the end like that last play of the game was right in front of me, so that was pretty cool. I was eye level with the referee. Like, we were both angled this way at the game. And
so you could see the holding on the play that was actually called.
That's
actually that wasn't called.
No, the holding that was called was on the other side of the field, but it was still in front of me, but on the other side. The Waller play to end the game, that one was on my side of the field. So he jumps up and he's right there, eye level with me, basically. And the ref was standing right where I was. And to be honest, you couldn't see the holding live. Even the Giants fans didn't see it in the stadium live. On TV watching the replay, sure, you can see he tugs him a little bit. But my eyes were right where the refs were, and you couldn't see it.
And there's a such thing as a good penalty sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
The last play of the game, like, I'd rather have 3 interference calls than let them catch it.
Sure, yeah.
So like when the refs called the first one, the second to last play of the game, I was upset because I'm like, how are you going to call that on the last play of the game?
Yeah.
Like, let them play. That's normally what the NFL refs do in that situation.
Yes.
So I was kind of shocked. But they get the second chance, and Taron Johnson gets in his face. It wasn't really horrible. The holding wasn't horrible, I would say.
No, it wasn't egregious. It could go either way.
Right. It could go either way, but I think the refs did the right thing. Just let them play it out.
Yes. And I mean, if they saw it or not, I don't know. We didn't see it on the field.
I mean, I think if that's a normal play and the game's not on the line, it's certainly a call. Certainly. The way they call play, the way they call interference, it's,
But they were throwing flags the whole game. I wouldn't imagine
that
they just decided, we're not going to call this one, even though we saw it. I think they just didn't see it. Again, I pretty much saw what the referee on that side saw, and I did not see the holding, and neither did the Giants fans around me. So it was, I think, just a matter of the angle and like where his hand was when he tugged a little on the jersey. You couldn't see it live. And I know it's the ref's job to see it, and he's looking for it a lot more than we in the stands are. But you couldn't see it live, and ultimately, even if it was still like a 50-50 call, and it wasn't called. But in that game, it seemed like every 50-50 call was getting called, except for on the Bills' way in the beginning of the game. Again, I didn't get a chance to rewatch, so there was a couple of spots where all of us thought in the stadium that it should have been called, and it wasn't. So it goes either way, I guess.
Right, sure. Right, yeah, definitely the 2 Gabe Davis fall downs, or actually one was Sherfield. But it did look like on TV that their legs got tangled a little bit. The first one was a little more maybe interference. It definitely looked like the legs got tangled, but definitely know what you're saying there. But Jason M joins us. Welcome back, Jason. Good to see you again. Now Now we cry and get moody about every drive. We don't score a touchdown, and every game we don't blow people out. Don't become what we always criticize.
Exactly.
That is so true. I mean, I remember when the Patriots fans were mum and arrogant, cocky, whatever you want to say about them, just expecting to win. And they had every right to do that. I mean, it's when you have Tom Brady and you're winning like they win and you're winning, going to every other year Super Bowl. That's just natural, right? You just become the expectation just becomes, hey, we're going to win this game. We don't have to worry. And that is absolutely what I thought was going on here.
Yeah.
We talked about the game, all of it, everyone. The spread was 14 points. We said it'd be more than that. We thought the Bills would win by at least 3 scores, 4 scores. Tyrod Taylor, no way they're going to win. It's in Buffalo. It's Sunday night. The Giants are 1-4. But really, I thought the Giants came out and played a really good game, to be honest. And we'll get into the Bills' struggles. But first, the Giants. Tyrod was Tyrod, right? He doesn't turn the ball over. He's not going to make any spectacular plays, like zero, but he will take care of the football. And most of the time, he'll call the right play, except for the goal line there in the half.
The audible goal line.
That's just rust. But that Tyrod has not changed since 2017. That's confirmed. He's the same quarterback. And he's an above-average backup. And it's just funny. Like, he's just not changed, but it's going to work for him. He's going to play probably another couple years in the league. So,
I mean, he dodged at least 2 sacks that I saw live. That's what Tyrod does. He's elusive. So he saved them a little bit there, and 2 throws that were just dimes on the money down the field, the distance. I was like, oh, all right, Tyrod, good for you. He still got it. So yeah, I did think Tyrod, considering the circumstances, did pretty well. I mean, they couldn't get in the end zone, but I think that's a combination of factors too. That's the Bills' defense in the red zone, but also just, playing with their B or C or D option offensive line at that point, and still being able to do what they did was impressive.
Yep, Tyrod Taylor, 24 of 36, 200 yards in the air. Longest was 31, no touchdowns on the day, as you mentioned. He had another 24 yards rushing. Just funny. But again, you'll see those throws when he was the Bills quarterback. You'd see, maybe 3 throws in the game that were perfect. Right. And then I forget who the receiver was, but it was on Kaiir Elam. And everybody in my house was, he saw the perfect pass down the field. It was pretty long. It was like 20 yards or something. But everyone starts blaming Kaiir Elam immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, that was a perfect throw. You just nothing you can do about that in the NFL,
Well, so, I will say in the stands again, watching the game,
Slayton.
Watching the game live, Elam did not look like he had a good day. Okay. They were every play, it seemed like, was like, oh, I wonder who was covering that guy. I bet it was Elam. And it was, right? So it was not a good day for Elam from the stands point of view.
Right, and that's kind of
watching like the all 22 or something, maybe he looked better in coverage or something, but not promising. I mean, that I was certainly every play I was like, oh, bet that was Elam. Yep, look, there he is on that side.
Which is surprising. I thought the Giants probably should have thrown the ball more, should have got Darren Waller more involved. Because the Bills were keen on the run. They had maybe one big run on the day, but the Bills' defense was really shutting Saquon Barkley down. Matt Breida had a couple runs, but not much there. And Tyrod, he has legs. He's well into his 30s now, so maybe not what he used to be. But the Giants' game plan was to run, and the Bills shut that down. So I thought from the Giants' point of view, some more play action, get Darren Waller on these smaller linebackers. I thought that would have been a good match, right? And then, again, Kaiir Elam, kind of just getting his season started here in his second game. I thought Daboll would dial some more stuff up like that. But, slow day for both teams, really. And the biggest difference, I just want to say it's a miracle the Bills won this game.
Oh, my God.
Because the Giants didn't turn the ball over, right? And that was the big thing. After the Bills turned it over a few times, I was like, this is going to get out of hand because we know Tyrod. That's his game, right? He just won't make the mistake.
Yep.
So it's absolutely a miracle the Bills won
at halftime. I tweeted out that the only thing beating the Giants right now is the Giants, and I meant it because they they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. They couldn't finish. Now, credit to the defense too. I'm not saying, but like they've made that horrible decision at half literally I was saying to people around me, like, hey, we could still stop them in bounds and they won't get any points. And sure enough, that's what happened 3 plays later. It was a miracle. But yeah, the Giants are just still a bad team. That's what it comes down to. They're not cerebral right now. Like
right.
they have talent. They're so good. They've got pieces. And you're like, oh, this has what it takes to be a good team, but they just can't put the puzzle together to, make it work. Like with all I kept saying, like, this game at half should have been like 24-0 Giants.
Sure.
And yet they couldn't finish. They couldn't capitalize. They couldn't get it done. Again, credit to the Bills
Too
defense.
conservative.
Those guys played well. But yeah, It was just like,
very conservative.
You got to get at least one, but they couldn't. So, yeah, that worked. It worked in the Bills' favor and kept them in the game long enough to wake up in the fourth quarter, which, by the way, again, they were driving. They scored at the very beginning of the fourth quarter, first play of the fourth quarter. At the end of the third quarter, they were right where I was. So I was like, get in the end zone right here next to me. And nope, the time ran out and they went to the other side and made the play and scored the first touchdown. So, and the other touchdown was on that side as well. So it was, nothing in front of us. It was my nephew's first game. He was in his Bills gear with me, and we were hoping that we would get a touchdown on our side of the field, but it just didn't happen. Luckily, neither did the Giants, although the Giants were driving every time in our directions, it seemed. So I guess fourth quarter was the Bills on the opposite side. Third quarter, first quarter was the Giants on our side. So, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, and I feel like the Giants really had a good performance, really. Didn't score a lot of points, but, they didn't lose the game like other weeks, and this one felt like the season's on the line for the Giants, right? They're now 1-5, but you're 1-4. You have a chance to get something going. If they won this game, it would have been a big win for them in Buffalo against what a lot of people think the Bills are a top team. I feel like the defense played pretty well, right? And for the situation with the offensive line issues and Daniel Jones being out, the offense did what they had to do and not turn the ball over. Really, if they score before the half, this game
it gets way out of hand. Yeah.
Right, gets out of hand. Right. So, Giants now 1-5. You got to start thinking, okay, well, it's going south from here. You're playing in a good division. Dallas looked good last night on Monday night. Eagles are the Eagles, right? I know they dropped one, but
still good.
Commanders still looking decent. Giants are they're going to get maybe a top 10 pick. Surprising.
Yeah. We'll see where they end up.
Yeah, let's jump over to the Bills real quick, though. So really surprising to me that Josh Allen is out Tyrod Taylor. Right? They missed a lot of throws early, which I thought was
true. I didn't think of it that way, but
very
you're
much
right.
a Tyrod Taylor game from Josh Allen.
That is a very good comparison. Even his yardage was like less than 200 yards. You're like, huh? How did he have less?
You got to go on
lots
late,
of completions. Yeah, yeah. That's a very good comparison. I didn't think of it that way until you said that. But
169 yards for Josh Allen through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Let me find his first half stats because that's probably more Tyrod Taylor like. Here we go. 8 for 18, 87 yards and a pick.
Not good.
Quarterback rating of 36. And again, in the first half of those 18 throws, 12 go to Stephon Diggs, 6 are receptions. So, a little bit of force feeding there. Seemed like that was the game plan, right? Force feed.
Yeah. Diggs. I've heard that constantly, but I don't care if Diggs gets the ball 90% of the time, right? The fact of the matter is he's your best player and your best receiver, on your best pass catcher option out there. And he was open most of the time, and there was only a few plays, again, watching live where, and the few he did, it was because he was on the opposite side of the field. There were guys open on the other side, but the pressure chased him to the opposite side and he ended up forcing it to Diggs there. But yeah, there were a couple that I definitely saw where guys were open. I don't like the talk of like, oh, a dozen targets to Diggs, they must be force feeding him. Maybe, but who cares? They should be force feeding him. He's the best player on the offense. If it's not working, that's one thing, but he did end up with 10 catches for 100 yards. So it was working, he catches the ball, he makes plays. He's reliable. If there's something that goes wrong, he's the one that Allen wants to throw the ball to, and it works. So yes, other guys could have done more to get open, although there were a few. Every quarterback misses a few, I guess. It just was a product of the team not playing well. I think the bigger problem was Gabe Davis, okay? Because I know we've talked about the inconsistency with Gabe Davis, but one thing is consistent now. He lost Josh Allen's respect in this game, okay? He threw it to him in the first quarter. He makes a big play. He fumbles it, and he never touches the ball after, right? Because no matter how open he was or what they did, I think he got one more catch in the game, actually. But
3 on the day total.
Yeah, so Josh, you could tell. I mean, in the feeling, even in the stadium, was like, please don't throw it to that guy anymore, right? And you don't want to feel that way about your number 2 wide receiver. I know he has big play potential, but to me, it's over now. I am over Gabe Davis, okay? For next season, I hope he does great the rest of the year. I hope he does great. I hope he becomes some all-world wide receiver all of a sudden. Have fun on another team next year. That's where I'm at. The inconsistency for me is too frustrating to keep him around. I don't want to see him get extended. It's like you need more consistency.
Okay, it's one fumble, and this happens, right?
Oh, it's one
Diggs
fumble.
Fumbles.
He lost the game against the Jaguars single-handedly because he couldn't fucking catch a first down in the second quarter when it mattered. I'm sick of people saying, oh, that play, it's one play in a game. No, Gabe Davis drop killed the momentum the last game. Now, the Jaguars game, we had multiple guys making mistake. This game that was early on, he killed the momentum and gave it to the Giants single-handedly. Nobody else was in on that play. Gabe Davis did it his goddamn self for making a mistake, just like he did the last time. And the drops he's had throughout, you cannot have that. I would rather have a guy who's worse of a wide receiver, whatever your stats are, and then somebody who's more reliable. You got to have reliability, right? Why did Josh always go to Cole Beasley? Because he was reliable. Gabe Davis can make a big play, but he's just not reliable. And I personally, if I'm building the team, I'm telling you, I'm done with that. Get out of here. I'm done with that. We hope you have a great rest of this season, enough to win us the Super Bowl, and then sign with somebody else next year, and we'll figure it out next to Diggs.
But if you're concerned with Gabe Davis, you got to be concerned with Dawson Knox as well, right? He's had drops.
Certainly his production, his production this year is not good enough. Trade him away. That's what I say. Hey, you got Kincaid. If somebody really wants Knox, although I don't think he has value, they could do that. Yeah. And I would not be angry at this point because fact of the matter is this year especially, he has not been present. When he gets the ball, he makes good things happen. But he's got to be able to catch and finish and get open more, right? And have a bigger impact. For what he's getting paid, he is not living up to that. But Gabe Davis, I mean, obviously he's the more pressing because he's a free agent at the end of the year.
Yeah, fair. I mean, and those are your only 3 retargets in the first half. Diggs, Davis, and Knox. The only 3 receivers in the first half of this game to get targets.
And I think a big part of that was Kincaid's absence was felt, even though he's a rookie and he doesn't get a lot of targets or whatever. He makes an impact on getting other guys open and involved in what you can do out of 12 personnel and everything.
Yeah. I don't think we need to trade them away. We're going to need them for sure. But there's definitely something off with this offense, right? And, it could be a million things. It could be just lack of preparation, lack of creativity, just cold, kind of hitting a cold spot. We know teams will follow their quarterback, and we know Josh gets hot and cold, right? Mm-hmm. And, when you have a quarterback like that, it's going to affect the whole team. You're going to have highs and lows. They're not going to be hot all the time. You know what I mean? So, yeah, what do you think of the main issues of this offense in the last 2 weeks? Because something's definitely off with these cold starts. It's not pretty.
Well, the fall that Josh Allen had where he hurt his shoulder was concerned. That was also in the end zone where my seats were. And you could see him. Didn't watch the broadcast, so I don't know. You could see him kicking his feet afterwards, like on the turf. And I was just like, oh God, no, anything but this, please. And luckily he got back up. We know they took him out, checked him for concussion. He was fine. He came back in. thank God. But this is going to be a story maybe that affected him for the rest of the game. He didn't look like himself after that. He did miss a few passes, but every quarterback is going to. He did, make a few decisions when a guy was open, but that's, again, everybody's going to do that. This wasn't his best game in that sense, but he wasn't the reason I thought that the momentum was killed. Play calling could have been a little different. We could have run the ball a little better in that first half. The formations were driving me nuts. Josh Allen out of shotgun every single time from like, it's 3rd and 1. Oh, okay, let's go in shotgun. Like, what the hell? Even if you're handing it off, at least get under center and hand it off. Like, what are you doing? Like, come on. That seems like common sense to me. And a lot of us in the stadium were frustrated by that same thing because, it to me, that just, I don't understand the logic to it. You can make an argument for a lot of things. That one, I don't think you can. So the rhythm has been off the past 2 weeks for sure. The forcing this, forcing that. How do we figure out what's working, at the start of the game and mix it up a little from there? It's been off and it's been maintained. Now, this game also, I mentioned the absence of Kincaid, I think made that I think is why Diggs was getting more options, just because it seemed like that was the only option out there. Now the other guys
And that doesn't make sense to me because we've seen Dawson Knox be a vital part to this offense in multiple games. We've seen Gabe Davis, have tons of targets
he made the
and be the
mistake
player
early,
of the game, right? So like you can rely on these guys. I don't think Kincaid's the missing piece to say that the offense should fall apart because he's not on the field. I mean, we've seen this
not fall apart,
offense work with what they have. You know what I mean?
And Knox, you're right. Those other guys have got to step up, period. Nobody is doing enough there, even in the run game, right? You got to be able to establish both. So it goes from Dorsey and his play calling and mixing it up to find the rhythm. Everybody can criticize this or that. You got to find the rhythm, right? It did seem like they were forcing the pass in the first half, mixed it up a little better in the second half, and then things got going a little better, right?
Right.
So, but you got to detect that earlier and be able to figure out like, oh, okay, this is what's working here. This is what isn't before halftime. You can't just keep going to the same. It's not working. Same thing between games. We've seen some stupid ass plays repeated every single game. Why are you running it up the gut on 2nd and 15 every single time? It's stupid and it never works. Stop it, right? But they continue to do that. Dorsey keeps dialing that number.
In the offseason, this is all we talk about is they need to get a power run game. We talk about it all offseason. The national media
not
talks
on 2nd
about
and
it.
15.
Then we try it, and everyone's like, "Well, it's boring." So it's like you can't have it all. What I think is one thing I've noticed is the last 2 weeks, the defensive lines have been extremely disciplined in containing Josh Allen, and you have to be disciplined to keep him in the pocket. And I don't think he likes playing in the pocket. He always tries to get out, and he does. He's such an athlete. He can get out of the pocket and make plays. But they're doing more now than they have in the past of keeping him in the pocket contained. And I think it's creating a level of frustration there. I think that's some of the underlying issues, and that's knocking them out of their rhythm, right? You're forcing Josh to beat you from the pocket with his arm, and that's not his game. We know he likes to run right. We've talked about Wyoming right since 2017, 2018.
Yeah, so, that's his play.
That's his play, and he's always got there, and I think he's doing that. But even with the Giants, some of the all-22 I watch, their defender, their secondary is rushing to the right, and they're doing a good job of covering the whole right of the field when Josh gets out there. So defense was very disciplined in this game, and I think that caused some problems. But again, you got to dial something else up. I thought Cole Beasley back in the day was great for that. Like Josh can stay in the pocket, just quick dump off. I thought we'd see more of the tight ends take that role this year. Just those little option routes underneath.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like we haven't seen that. Maybe I'm missing something.
I mean, maybe so was active, but he was dealing with an injury this week too. So maybe that had something to do with it. And Quentin Morris caught the touchdown pass. Which is
just another Josh athlete throw.
Exactly.
It's not dialed up in any way. You know what I mean? But, but those little dump offs, they create rhythm and momentum like you're talking about. And I think that's what's missing from this offense. They're trying to get 20, 30 yards down the field every play, or we're going to run it up the middle with our 3 running backs. Those
Yeah.
little dump offs, I feel like good rhythm. And Josh misses some of those. We've seen him dialed up and Josh just misses the throw at times. That's also a momentum killer, right? But I think if I'm the offensive coordinator, I'm going to focus on that a little bit. When they're playing too deep and they're playing disciplined, contain on the line, that's when you need to dump it off in those little, I call them Cole Beasley routes, but they're,
Right.
I don't know
That's
the
what they are to
actual
us
terms.
with
You have to
Josh Allen. That's
bring
what
in
they
the
are.
experts, but
Important.
exactly. But get a rhythm going.
One thing that you kind of alluded to that I do think is important also, we talked about guys stepping up. I think they need to shift and find wide receiver 3. Okay. I know you got 10 options for wide receiver 3, but who is it, right? Which guy are you going to get the momentum going with? You paid these guys to come in the offseason. They all have different skills. You still have a guy like Khalil Shakir on the team. Somebody has to assign them. Like, stop giving them 5 plays a game each or whatever. Give one guy a game and see if he can build that chemistry with Allen, right? And see if he can be that reliable for the, I know they're playing a lot of 12 personnel, but in a game like this, when you necessarily couldn't because you didn't have Kincaid and Knox banged up, well, maybe you should have built momentum toward a third true number 3 option. And in a game where we already talked about, Gabe Davis was eliminated from the first quarter on because you knew you couldn't rely on him. That's immediately now you need number 3 to step up, and there just isn't on this team yet this year, right? I mean, the stats will show you. I think you could read the stats of the rest of the wide receivers, and it looks like they haven't even played a game, right? Because they barely have any catches, yards, or touchdowns, right? And it's I think adding that up, even though you have a lot of good options, let somebody step up into that role and build the chemistry and reliability with Allen. I think that could be a change that this offense needs as well.
For sure. Yeah. I think they got to figure something out. I don't, nobody knows that more than the team, right?
Mhm.
This coaching staff, they're very reliable. I personally trust Ken Dorsey, and a lot of people are going south with him, but I think they figure it out. But again, that's 2 bad weeks of football on offense, and I think they work hard to bounce back. But what do you think? Where do we go from here, right? We got the Patriots this weekend. We got a quick turnaround, and the Buccaneers coming to town next Thursday.
Mhm.
That's 2 games back to back. You're not going to have a lot of downtime to think
Yeah.
about it, right? You're rolling right into the next game. So, we talked about a couple things that we would do to try to fix the offense. Again, what do you think? Moving forward, are we going to see 30-point blowouts again? Like, what is
Yes.
the identity of this team and this offense? Or are we going to be week to week?
I mean, you want to see it become consistent. And I think that version of our offense is the true version of our offense. And these last 2 games have been the blips on the radar, right? The good thing is you're playing 2 opponents that you are heavily favored to beat again, just like you were the Giants, right? And now hopefully you've learned from the Giants game and could say, okay, here's how we're going to adjust. The Patriots are reeling right now, right? And we need to be able to capitalize on that as an offense. The Tampa Bay Bucks are not as competitive with us, our roster on both sides of the ball, right? They are not. Baker Mayfield is their quarterback. You have to be able to take advantage of that, right? Our defense will take advantage of that. We're going to be heavy favorites in both of those games. I think that gets the offense going, right? You got to be able to come out and, because they are inferior opponents, establish what you want to establish. The Giants did a very good job, like you said, with the pass rush, containing Allen. They've got guys there, man. Those dudes can play football on defense for the Giants, especially their pass rushers.
Right.
I don't feel that way about the Patriots right now. They're dealing with a lot of injuries on defense. I think we could attack them at all levels. I don't feel that way about Tampa Bay's defense. Who's the scariest person there, right? On their defense. There's not a lot that they can throw at Allen in this offense to throw us off rhythm. So now is when you hit the reset button and say, okay, here's the adjustments we're going to make. We're going to use these two games to get back on track, because then it starts a pretty rough gauntlet of going through the ringer games. So you have to find that consistency again, get back the momentum, get back the confidence, and work on what hasn't been clicking right. And like we just talked about, all those adjustments that we would make, hopefully they have more
Yeah.
ideas in-house, and they do that, and they're saying, okay, here's how we're going to make this work.
Yeah, for the
That's what I want to
offenses,
see.
the offense in particular, Tampa Bay currently has the third least yards allowed, or third, least yards allowed in the league, and that's Todd Bowles, right? We know he's a good coach. They have Devin White there, Vita Vea in the middle. I mean, that's a pretty big challenge. They currently have 10 turnovers as a defense,
No,
seventh
that's
in the
pretty
league.
good.
So
But
they've been
they've
pretty
been
good.
beating up inferior opponents. They just played the Lions and got their butts beat
Sure.
20-6. I would put our offense
Right.
on par with the Lions more than I would
Yeah.
Arizona or these other teams that they beat, right?
Right.
So that's not
I
going to
I think
be.
they have offensive problems, right? And we'll talk about them a ton.
Yeah.
Um, I think the Patriots and the Bucks both have their running games are trash. New England's
Yeah.
26, Tampa Bay's 32nd, right? And we've had bye weeks too, right? So 32nd's really
They're
bad.
bad.
But yeah, Patriots are always going to be somewhat formidable on defense. They're 13th this year in yards allowed from a defensive standpoint. So yeah, that's on the agenda, but
They've had a few big
it's
injuries.
it's personally the Bills got to figure it out internally,
Yeah.
right?
One last thing with this game that was absolutely shocking to me, and again, didn't see it on TV, but pre-game warm-ups on my side of the field, pre-game warm-ups. Tyler Bass is warming up. He's kicking from the 30, kicking from the 40, kicking from the 50-yard line, dead center of the logo. He kicked it through the uprights. It hit the back of the upright, through the back of the whatever, the pole between the uprights. I don't know what that's called. The middle of it, dead center. He got it. Okay, even the Giants fans were like, "Holy hell, this dude can kick!" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's an awesome kicker. He can kick it from anywhere." That was on my side of the field. Both of the missed field goals were on the other side of the field. So I don't know if he just wasn't feeling it on that side, if the wind was different or whatever. But obviously those were two big missed field goals and opportunities. A lot has been said about McDermott's decision at the end of the game there to kick the field goal rather than punt. A lot of us in the stands, again, were like, oh, he's definitely going to punt here. But he should have, either way, he should have run the ball on the third down to run the clock down 40 more seconds, not throwing a pass to try and win the game. If the Bills get a first down there, you win the game, which is great and all, but I would have much rather run the ball, got the 40 seconds out, especially if you knew you were going to kick the field goal anyway, right? So get a little closer, kick the field goal, maybe that changes it. Plus you take 40 seconds off, even if he misses it. But instead they missed the field goal. Now the Giants are at the 45 and drive.
I don't think it's a bad decision. I mean, getting closer.
I don't think so
a
either.
good decision. But
yeah, it was aggressive.
When you have a kicker like Bass, you can rely on him. Anywhere. He's much more trustworthy than the offense at this point in this game,
certainly.
Right? But with
that was Bass, more shocking to me, actually, was that he missed both of those field goals. That was more
Tyler
shocking.
Bass, 9 for 11 on field goals this year. The two misses were his only misses on the season, and both of them over 50 yards. So he drops down to 23rd in the league in field goal percentage. There is still 6 kickers that are 100% on the season.
On how many attempts? That's got to be why.
Yeah, they're all double-digit attempts. One's still 7 attempts in Green Bay. But yeah, so they're all just good kickers in the NFL, man. Real good. And Tyler Bass is one of them. But when the team's cold, and this is the problem with Josh Allen being hot and cold sometimes. When he's cold, you got to manage it. Daboll was the best at that, right? You got to manage it because it can impact everybody on the sideline, including Tyler Bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're lucky. Sean McDermott, the defense seems like they're always hot, right? We rarely see them get cold.
I mean,
credit to Sean McDermott.
Yes, right. But that's a solid point on this game as well. Freaking give the guy an award already, okay? Sean McDermott deserves whatever award there is for defensive coaching, all right? Because it's insane. Give the guy an Academy Award at this point. I mean, it's nuts what he has done with the fact that we lost Milano, we've lost Trey White, we've lost Daquan Jones, 3 guys who were playing top of their game in the NFL, not just on this team, every level. And yet this defense still held a team that was driving and everything to 9 points. So same thing with the Jags, staying with them to 11 points. That is credit to McDermott and what he's getting out of the bottom of the barrel of this roster right now because of injuries. Not that those guys aren't any good. They are good. They're playing well. But when you have a rookie starting at middle line or outside linebacker, you got, all of these factors that have come into play this season. The defense is on point. So let's give McDermott the respect he absolutely deserves for that, because he is a defensive guru at this point. He's proven all he needs to.
Yeah, I mean, he can develop players in his system, and his system works. I think that's it's always consistently good, right? And in the NFL, when you have injuries and things like that, that's all you're asking for, right? I think he does a great job of that, no doubt about it. So lucky to have him. Quick point on Josh Allen: he now drops to 7th in the league in yardage. Behind C.J. Stroud, which is C.J. Stroud looking pretty good.
Lots of 300-yard games.
He still leads the league in completions percentage. Still 3rd in the league in touchdowns with 13, behind Kirk Cousins and Tua. And interceptions, 4th in the league with 6. Large tie, though. Lots of players with 6 interceptions. Garoppolo, Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones are ahead of him with more interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, fun to keep an eye on. Mama said there'd be bad days, but Bills get out of there with a win. Don't ask questions. We already talked about it too much. Let's
That's the bottom line. I always say the last thought I did with this game, I tweeted it out the next day. I said, I've been to a lot of ugly games, but look at a team like Kansas City. Haven't even hit their stride yet. How many years have we seen them constantly win bad games? All that matters is the W in the end, because it come January, when we're seeding for the playoffs, or when you're playing games in the playoffs, nobody's going to care that the Giants game didn't go your way, but you got to win. All that matters is you have the W in the win column. That's what matters.
Yep.
At this point in the season.
Yep, and that's all that matters. So, ready to get in your pick 6 recap?
Let's do it.
There we go. All right. Your 6th pick of the week.
Raiders. I had them at -3 at one point as well. Interesting ending to this one. Let me tell you, I saw the scoreboard and I'm like, oh boy, they're winning, but they're only winning by 2. Oh, that sucks. I'm going to lose this one. And then Mac Jones coming through for me, getting sacked in the end zone for a safety to put the Raiders up by 4, and they cover. So that's the W for me. We got the win. I'll take that for sure. It was a good ending for the people who bet the Raiders. Awful ending for the people who bet the Patriots. So.
Yeah. Mac Jones didn't just get sacked in the end. He got slammed for a safety by Max Crosby.
I didn't see it, but I saw what happened in the stat
sheet. Took him a while. I thought he was dead for a minute, Anyway, next one. Dallas at the Chargers. You took the Chargers.
I did. And let me tell you, I watched that game last night, and my conclusion is the Chargers absolutely suck. Okay, they had so many opportunities. I've heard a lot about how Justin Herbert was on a high this year and everything, and always playing an MVP level. He's garbage in that game. Missed so many open receivers, missed so many easy passes. I don't know if he was just worried about the defense or what, because Dallas had the good defense. Dallas played well, but they didn't play very good. It wasn't a great game for them. Again, they escaped with the win. Unfortunately, Chargers did not cover in that one, so it was a loss for me.
Yeah, the Chargers now, this is just the same story as last year. They lose close games. That's just who they are as an identity. Mm-hmm. Is it Herbert throwing picks on the final drive? Is it the defense? Whatever it is.
Just bad.
Whatever it is, it's bad. It's hard to watch. Maybe it's, going for on 4th down too much, right? Anyway, Chargers still one of the most talented teams in the league, but don't know how to win, right? That's going to stick with them throughout the season. Seattle at Cincinnati.
This was another heartbreaker. I took Seattle plus 2.5. They lost by 3. And they lost because of or they lost by 4, I think it was. Because of they had the possession at the end of the game with about a little less than 3 minutes left. They were in the red zone. They went for the touchdown down 4 instead of kicking a field goal, which blew my mind because they still had timeouts. They still had the 2-minute warning. Your confidence is in your defense either way. So kick the field goal. Instead, they go for it. They miss it. Bengals take over. They stop the Bengals. They get the ball back, go back in the red zone, and Geno Smith craps his pants and blows it for him. You know,
anytime you have a
horrible
chance, anytime you have a chance to win the game on the last play of the game, and you don't even get the throw off,
ball's in your hands.
It's a massive disaster, right? You at least got to throw the ball up. You know,
pathetic showing for the Seahawks at the end there, but heartbreaking loss because the whole time I'm thinking, why didn't you kick the field goal the first time? And then all you would need is a field goal to win. You're still showing confidence in your defense either way. And if they come back and score a touchdown, you're still within 8 points. You could get it. So I didn't like how that one ended at all. I didn't understand it. I couldn't understand what the Seahawks were thinking.
All right, so let's get into your number 3, Minnesota at Chicago.
Yeah. Minnesota, this was one that all the money was going towards Chicago. And I told people, you're crazy. Minnesota's not that bad, and Chicago isn't that good. And sure enough, Minnesota handled them pretty much start to finish and won it pretty handedly, which was what I expected. Not an amazing game by any means to watch or anything, but Minnesota still has weapons and was still able to use them and had the veteran quarterback who was able to lead his team to victory. Obviously, the Bears are dealing with injury now as well, but still a good win for Minnesota, who seems to be a team that I pick a lot because the lines don't favor how good this team is.
Right. And Justin Fields leaving the game. I think that had a pretty big impact. So good win for Minnesota. They desperately needed it. All right. Eagles at the Jets. Good game here.
Yeah. Me and everybody else in the country lost this one, I feel, because the Eagles put up their stinker game, I guess. The Jets defense is legit, man. And I said that, but I thought the Eagles would at least be able to win by a touchdown, and quite the opposite. They end up losing. Good game for the Jets, bad, horrible game for the Eagles. But yeah, this was a loss that you just have to eat because most of us thought the Eagles would cover here.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just the same story with the Jets. Everyone on the Jets roster is good except for Zach Wilson. It's the same story. I'm scared when Aaron Rodgers comes back. I ain't going to lie to you. All right, here we go. We got the Detroit Lions. I can see your face.
I'm not.
Detroit Lions at the Buccaneers.
I don't care if Aaron Rodgers comes back. I wanted to play Aaron Rodgers in week 1. The Bills are more built to beat a guy like Aaron Rodgers than a guy like Zach Wilson, period. And I'm hoping he comes back.
They haven't been the last 2 weeks.
Shut up about it.
Yeah, we'll see when the time comes. So Aaron Rodgers might be back, right? Those mushroom getaway dark room
I hope,
things are fixing his Achilles. So, all right, Lions at Bucks. I know you took the Lions and on a high note here.
Yes, exactly. This was my big bet of the week. Big win, easy win again. Detroit handled them start to finish. They were the better team, just as I expected, and Tampa Bay looked like Tampa Bay. And his stat line, what's his name? The quarterback for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, you know it is.
His stat line is what it should be.
He slept with your girlfriend back in the day.
Kyle Trask.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Baker. Okay. I thought you were just not saying his name because you just hate him for some weird
reason. I was trying to think of Kyle Trask. No, Baker was Baker in this game. Exactly. He came down to earth and did what he usually does. Nothing. And causes a loss. So hurts the team more than he helped it, which he did in this one. But the Lions, they look like one of the best teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
So
good for them. I mean, the fans have been waiting a long time, and we know what that's like. So, kudos to the Lions right now. I like the way they're playing. All right, so what's your record on the week out of the 6?
It was 3-3 with the 6. I also won the Thursday game. We're still at 64% on the season, which is insane, right? So 24, 15, and 13 is my overall record, 24, 15, and 3, not 13 ties. That would be crazy. 3 at this point in the season is actually pretty remarkable for pushes. But yeah, so 24, 15, and 3, right around 64% by the bookies standards. Yeah, ties are technically wins in bookie.
Not standards. Bad. So what percentage do you need to be at to call yourself a betting expert? Or what's the certification process to be a betting expert? I see them on ESPN. I see them on the network. I just don't know.
Somebody's got to be willing to pay you to do it. I think that's what it comes down to, because I watch those shows all the time, and I frequently disagree with them, and they are more frequently wrong than they are right. And maybe that's why they put them on TV, because ultimately we know that all these companies want to make money. They don't want to lose money.
Right. But you
So
can analyze anything. You just have no idea how a football game will turn out. The
exactly.
only advantage you could have as a bettor, right, is to, have some inside information. Hey, Josh has the flu, but he's not telling anybody. Hey, so-and-so's girlfriend broke up with him this week, right? That's like I feel like that's the only advantage. But even then, you could still lose, right? So
yeah, but you have to justify. I mean, there's a reason I have a winning track record over the last 4 years now, right? It's because I know how to balance the data with my gut, right? You can't tell me. You can show me all the data in the world that says, oh, the Patriots are going to beat the Raiders this past week, right? And I'm going to tell you, no, the Patriots look like absolute garbage, and I'm picking the Raiders because they need the win and they're going to do it, right? So, I just think there's a balance that you have to find between all the stats, data, and information in the world and your gut of just knowing football and having an instinct for how you think it's going to work out and knowing your own biases too, right? Although I like the Buffalo Bills and I will bet them because I'm a fan of them, I don't frequently pick them for the pick six unless it's a really good line that I think is, too good to resist because
I'm kind of shocked you didn't pick them last week. Really should have picked the Giants plus 14. That's just a huge.
Well, you know how I feel about any line that's plus 10, right? I always say avoid them. Like I don't bet if it's unless it's something absolutely crazy circumstances. You usually don't want to bet if it's 10 points or more because any NFL team, that's a hard expectation to follow.
Well, I will say this: only on the Hoof Podcast can you have a real scientist telling you how to balance his gut and his statistics together to apply your money to football, right? So I think tune in with us every single Tuesday and Thursday. We'll get the bets ready. Anthony puts out his best bets of the week on Thursdays and gets everybody rolling for the weekend, and then recaps those bets every Tuesday on the Buffalo Morning Brew Show. So all on the Hoof Podcast. Be sure to tune in because I don't know what betting expert is, but I think you're one of them.
Absolutely. Anyway. Yes, pay me. That'd be great.
Yeah. All right. So then we have just going to pop up the records here through 6 weeks. Buffalo currently second in the division, behind Miami at 5-1. Buffalo 4-2. Jets are 3-3, back to 500. New England a surprising 1-5. Looking around the league, there's no undefeated teams now after this week. Wild weekend in that way.
San Francisco loses, in a crazy game against the Browns. We said that on this show. Everybody was like, "Oh, who would have thought the Browns would have put up a fight?" I'm like, "You don't listen to the Hoof, do you?"
If they had
that on the show,
it would have been a much bigger blowout.
I mean, and I said their defense, right? How many times have I said their defense is not one that San Francisco has seen yet and is going to hold them more, which is the scary part. Now, San Francisco's was the best team in the league, so you have to put up and show that you can do it. But we certainly expressed reason to believe that Cleveland would make that a game.
Yeah, and not to mention the AFC North. Cincinnati is number 4 in the division currently. That is a real dogfight going on weekend.
We knew that whole division was going to be like that, though. And if you look at the standings, it's a 1-game lead from first place to last place. So, it's certainly
close. That could be anybody's division at this point. So that's going to be really fun to watch. Detroit sitting on top of the NFC North. Green Bay at 2-3 is number 2. Minnesota, then Chicago to follow. Jacksonville, who we expected, now looking like that team that's going to start to separate. They're at 4-2, trailed behind Indianapolis and Houston. Little surprising. Looks like Anthony Richardson might be headed to the IR, so that's going to hurt Indianapolis. But Gardner Minshew, they could maybe squeak in a 500 season. I guess we don't have those anymore, but an 8-9 season. And Houston as well, right? Those two teams seem pretty surprising.
My Houston Texans, you know it.
Yeah. So I think there'll be some separation. Tennessee ends up at the bottom there. Tampa Bay in the NFC South. We have New Orleans and Tampa Bay, and Atlanta's still right there. That's still a 3-way race. Carolina racing to the bottom to have the number 1 pick again. That's what it's looking like right now. And then the AFC West is the same story. It's been for now 5 years. Kansas City somehow, without a receiving core, ends up at 5-1 to start the year. I just don't understand. It's how their GM has to be saying, how low can we go and still win? And it still works. Amazing. It's amazing what they're doing. Raiders squeaking in there to get ahead of the Chargers. Chargers, that tough loss last night at 2-3 now. Denver, the same Denver, right? They're still not scoring points.
Bad.
They're at 1-5. They got a lot of decisions to make at the end of the year, and I think you'll start seeing players be shipped out of there. And then finally, the NFC West, San Francisco at 5-1, arguably the best team in the league still, even with the tough loss in Cleveland. Brock Purdy struggled, but still looks like the best team in the league as far as record goes through 6 weeks. And then Seattle and the Rams, pretty surprising at 3-3. Arizona 1-5, as we kind of expected. So, with all of that, we got 4 questions. You know, put your answers in the comments as well. But let's start right here. Best team in the league right now. Who you got?
Best team in the league.
Through 6 weeks of football. You got your sample size.
Nauseating.
Who's the best team in the league?
Nauseating. It has to be the Kansas City Chiefs.
Ooh.
Because of everything I've said. They have not played a good game yet. They have not played a good game yet, and they're 5-1. So what happens when this team starts to click? What happens when those receivers start to build chemistry and trust with Patrick Mahomes? It's so frustrating. That defense, they're about to get Frank Clark back, most likely, right? A leader, if nothing else, in the clubhouse. I'm just so angry about it because it seems like they can do no wrong there. They fall down and somehow get back up stronger. You know, it's just I'm hoping that it catches up with them in the playoffs, and I think it still will once they have to go through the gauntlet of the teams that are ready to beat them and at the level to beat them. But they just keep, playing inferior teams and barely getting by and scraping by. So to me, that puts them above, the other contenders for me. I hate saying that, but it's Kansas City.
That's a good point because, you're right. They have not looked great. I'm not even sure but somehow they squeak it out, right?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, how they're doing that. It seems like they're using the running backs a lot more than they used to. But again, I think Rashee Rice will eventually become their number 1 receiver there. Yeah. And Kelsey will
those young guys,
just keep doing Kelsey stuff. Those 3 tight ends are kind of a nightmare to defend for them. So that's been working. I got to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think you look at who's the complete team. They just have the most talent. Every single position is talented for them.
Yeah.
I just saw a thing. They signed Julio Jones. Who cares? They didn't need him. But they just have a lot of depth. They have it all. A.J. Brown's just a difference maker on the field. And that defensive line is just insane, right? So I think eventually we'll see Philadelphia have the best record as the league goes on or as the season goes on.
I could see that.
Okay, next one here. Most surprising team. Maybe a team you thought wasn't going to have a good record, but now looking like a contender. Maybe your most surprising.
Most surprising. This one is a little more challenging because there's a lot of people. Depends on what you mean by surprising. Now you could say my Houston Texans, but they're not surprising to me.
You weren't surprised.
Right where I said they'd be. Most surprising in a positive way or in a negative way?
Positive way, because I do have I have a one down the line here. That's going to be most surprising than negative.
I would give props to a team like the Rams, who are 3-3. Yes, they're third in their own division, but I expected them to be down with Arizona toward the bottom of the NFL, and they've come roaring back and proved almost everybody wrong. Even though their roster lacks, they have the salary cap issues that have caught up to them. They've cut players at a lot of positions. Cooper Kupp was injured, and they're still 3-3, right? And the guys they brought in are looking like stars. So the Rams would be a team that definitely comes to mind for me, where I think they could be in the playoffs and making a run. Whereas at the beginning of the season, I thought they were going to be bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, fair. And right now through 6 weeks, really not a lot of surprises when you look around, necessarily. But I got to say, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 3-2 is surprising, right? I think a lot of people wrote them off saying, "Oh, they don't have a run game. Kenny Pickett doesn't look like the quarterback they thought he'd be at this point." We always know they're going to play good defense, but they're also in a really tough division. I was high on Cleveland, so I can't say them. Baltimore, we know, is good, and Cincinnati's, obviously was a pick to be the top team in the AFC for many people. But Pittsburgh hanging in there at 3-2, I think through 6 weeks, that's surprising for me. because I would expect them to just be beat out by a lot of teams, have a lot worse record, right? The wheels were kind of falling off early on, but they've come back to get above 500. Definitely keep an eye on them as we go. All right, next go. Worst team in the league. Who's going to get that number one pick? Who's the Caleb Williams pick? Who are you going with?
I think Carolina's going to end up with the first overall pick,
which makes a really interesting conversation.
I don't think they're the worst team in the league. I think Arizona had the worst roster, and they've played well in every single game. So props to Arizona. They deserve some respect. Again, Josh Dobbs and what he's doing with that team. God, I can't believe that they're even surviving NFL games, and they've even got a win. To me, right now, the worst team in the NFL is New England. I mean, they're just off the rails, right? Completely lost on offense. They've invested so much in a lot of the offense, and they just look like a team that is not going to contend with anyone because they can't figure their own stuff out, right? And that's not where you want to be as a franchise. Carolina, at least they have pieces in place that they're building around.
Right.
They've been able to put points on the board. They've been able to look good. New England has not impressed me in any way.
Right. I think I saw a stat, and numbers might be a little off, but they was outscored 86-3 through 10 quarters.
Oh my gosh!
They scored some points in the second half of the Raiders game, but I think at the halftime the stat was 86-3 and through 10 quarters of football.
Wow,
it's got to be an all-time low in the last 20 years for New England. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think Carolina is definitely the worst team. I think they're going to end up with the number one pick in the draft, but that's almost by design. Rookie quarterback, you shipped off your good players, right? You're kind of rebuilding. New coach, right? But I mean, New England, they're trying to win. You know what I mean? Like they believe in Mac, right? Or that was the plan at least. And it looks like that's just not going to work out. So I mean, they're in the worst position in the league. Like, what do you do here? Can they claw their way out of it? I mean, I'd like to think that just because it's Bill Belichick and you hate to see him just go down. Or do you continue this awful performance? And they're trying to win. I don't think they're trying to tank, but you end up getting a top 2 pick and take a good quarterback, right? Now you're contender again, right? Interesting stuff to talk about. Also, Caleb Williams to Carolina, that's a very interesting conversation that we can have later. But
whoa.
That would be wild, right? We've seen it. The owner's a little...
We have seen stuff happen.
Owner's very involved. The owner loves a quarterback. Interesting.
All right, we'll see.
Anyway, yeah, I think other bad teams, Denver, Arizona, you already talked about. Chicago, I think Chicago and Giants both at 1-5 will end up winning some games at some point this year. Denver is the other one, right? I'd say Arizona, Denver, Carolina, and probably New England at this point are your top 4 picks in the draft. Maybe 5 Tennessee.
Right?
We could see a backup quarterback in there.
Depending on what happens with the Giants' record. Again, I think the Giants have been more in contention, at least in games, than the other teams we've mentioned. But if the Giants end up selling some of their pieces, then they'll be up there as well.
Yeah, I agree. So, I think that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Most disappointing team in the league, maybe a team you thought would be good, who has not panned out, and then we'll end the show right there.
Oh, disappointing. I mean, not to me personally necessarily, but the Denver Broncos. I mean, I saw people picking them to make the playoffs, and I thought that was crazy. But now they're below the Raiders, and they only have 1 win. It's been embarrassing for them. Not the kind of season they wanted to have at all. Not the kind of season most thought they would have. Sure, they had a really rough year last year, but you think bringing in Peyton, bringing in some players, okay, they can't get any worse than last year. And I would say it's more embarrassing this year. But, you brought in a new coach. He's got to rebuild a little. I think this next offseason will be more telling as to which direction and how they're going to deal with things in Denver. They've already started to sell pieces off and cut players and do all what they needed to do to kind of prepare for that. So they're going to be at the top of the draft again. And but disappointing for sure. I would say Denver has to be in that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people's pick as well. But tough division there. But I got 3 teams in mind. It's the Chargers, the Packers, and the Vikings. so far. And I'm going to say the
Vikings.
Chargers only because you have all the pieces, right?
Yeah.
And it's just not working out. I mean, I picked them to be contenders for the division, picked them to be contenders for the division last year. But again, just can't get over the hump there with the last. They lose all their games by 3 points. Can't get that last drive figured out. So I think they're disappointing. They're a team that could come back and still get in the playoffs and have a good season. I think for Green Bay and Minnesota, Green Bay in particular, we haven't seen Jordan Love play well. Maybe his first game, he looked pretty good, but since then it's just not, he does not look comfortable, not making good throws. And that's bad. That's a bad sign. So I think that could end up getting out of hand. Right. So
they are who I thought they were.
Well, also Aaron Jones being injured. We saw him flash in game 1 and he's been out. So
they do need that run game.
But there's good players in that roster, but if the quarterback's not going to play well, the team's not going to play well.
On the Minnesota front, though, I would agree, but I think they fall in the category of, a team like Cincinnati where they look bad because Cincinnati's in last place, but we know that division is still up for grabs. Although Detroit looks like they're running away with the division, the NFC itself is still up for grabs in terms of the teams that will make the playoffs. And I think Minnesota's still going to be there in the playoffs when it's all said and done. They have had some tough breaks. And, they're losing the close games that they won a bunch last year. So it's evening out for them. But their roster and their team is still good enough. I know everybody talked about, well, they're going to trade this guy or trade this piece. And they're going to trade Kirk Cousins. Apparently, Kirk Cousins has already said he's not interested in leaving and he has a no trade clause. So
he'll probably retire.
Not going anywhere, which he shouldn't, right? They're good enough to win. They're without
They just lost their magic. Yeah, they lost their magic. And I think it's pretty cute that you think they're going to get back in the playoffs. They got San Francisco Monday night in Minnesota.
And I think they can win that game.
But San Francisco coming off a loss.
We don't know what Christian McCaffrey is. San Francisco, their problem is Christian McCaffrey not being in there completely dismantles that offense. It's built around Christian McCaffrey being the dynamic piece. That opens up the pass game. That allows Brock Purdy to be a game manager. When you take that piece away, your team is nowhere near as good.
Right, but I think if they drop to 2-5,
that's dangerous territory.
They're in trouble. After that, they got Green Bay and then 2 AFC South teams, the Falcons and Saints. So, yeah, definitely uphill battle for them. But, yeah, look like you're right. Detroit's running away from it. With it. All right, so that's all we got for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Been a fun show. We got to get this Bills offense back on track, right? Let's go. Yeah. Come on. New England, divisional game. You got to have it. You never know what you're going to get from New England. I know we haven't seen much for 3 weeks, but
kick their butts,
you don't know when they're just going to turn it on, right? So you got to come up prepared, and then the quick turnaround Thursday. The Bills got to get it going here, right?
Yeah,
get back to normal. So.
Start getting the momentum towards beating New England. That's what it matters. That they'll do it. They need to beat them handedly, like you said. Get the offense back on track.
Yep. So tune in with us Thursday night around 7:30, and we'll get you ready for the Sunday preview. Week 7 picks. Hard to say. Week 7 already.
Make all our picks for the week. And yeah, I'll be doing my pick 6 as well, showing you with all the bye weeks coming up this week. There's a lot fewer games to pick from, but we're still going to be doing it. So tune in and thanks for kicking it with us.
Deuces.